Hey everybody. Today I'm going to read you a story. It's from my book, Tales from the Labyrinth, which is a collection of modern lore, modern Minoan myths from Ariadne's tribe. These are the stories of the stuff that our deities do in connection with the cycle of the seasons, the wheel of the year, and that kind of thing. You may not be familiar with the Mediterranean climate. If you're not, it's a little different from the spring, summer, fall, winter four-season cycle that a lot of us are familiar with. In the Mediterranean climate, planting of the field crops like grains and vegetables happens in the autumn. And then over the winter is the rainy season, the mild winter, and the crops grow and then are harvested in the springtime. And so we have just had the spring equinox a couple days ago, and that is the time of harvest in the Mediterranean. And for field crops anyway, it gets complicated, but we'll stick with that level for now. And so immediately after the spring equinox is a time that in Ariadne's tribe we call the blooming time. We consider this to be a short season between the harvest and the beginning of the summer. And in the Mediterranean, the summer is the fallow season, the dead and dry time. It is a dry season. It's very hot, no rain, and nothing grows. So it's definitely not the same as you might experience in a four-season northern temperate zone. So today, because we have just entered the blooming time, I'm going to read you a story about it. And hang on, sorry, I've got to juggle a book and a microphone here. Hopefully I can manage to handle both of them without a fight. Okay. So this is the story about the blooming time. There's the picture that goes with it. All the stories in here have full page, full color illustrations because, as Alice said, what good is a book without pictures? So here we go. The blooming time. The process of harvesting, threshing, and winnowing the grain took many days during the time of year when the wildflowers bloomed wildly in huge swaths of bright colors across the hillsides of Crete. It was during this season, the blooming time, that the farmers finished the labor of the harvest, finally storing the grain for the upcoming year. At the same time, the sailors prepared their ships for the sailing season that would soon begin, and the goat herders culled their herds, since only the strongest and healthiest animals could make the climb to the high summer pastures in the island's mountains. For all the people, it was a time of celebration, but also of reflection, of vigorous spring growth, as well as harvest and slaughter, a time of doorways and decisions. Sometimes the doorway is a single moment, like the sunrise on winter solstice morning. And sometimes the doorway is a whole season, the blooming time, a time of life and death together, for they are two sides of the same coin. And a time of flowers, oh, so many flowers. Flowers for the people to celebrate the springtime. Flowers for the ancestors, for their fragrance, calling the spirits of the beloved dead, offering them blessings. Flowers for Zagrus, the bull god who comes wreathed in blossoms in the blooming time. Zagrus, who is a face of our beloved god Tauros Asterion, comes not to stay with us, but to be the willing sacrifice every year during the blooming time. He arrives only to die and descends to the underworld to remind us that there is no straight line in life that ends once and for all in death, but instead a cycle that repeats endlessly and is full of joy. So the people danced in this season of flowers and life and death. They danced in circles, a reminder of the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And they told stories. At night they looked up at the stars and saw the stories of their deities in the patterns of tiny sparkling lights. Up in the night sky they saw the great starry bull, who is Tauros Asterion, as well as the Minotaur and Zagreus, with his red eye twinkling and winking at them. And they saw the divine twins, the ones who stand in front of the great bull in the night sky, ready to grab his horns and leap, the way the human bull leapers did in the arenas on festival days. Today, we call this constellation Gemini. These two, the great bull and the divine twins, stood on either side of the Milky Way at one of the gateways to the underworld, the place in the north where the line of constellations crosses the beautiful spirit road in the sky. This crossroads in the sky is a doorway through which the human soul arrives in this world at birth and leaves it at death. Of course, everyone knew that the divine twins were really a triplicity of deities named Taina, Cydele, and Eshuumna, with Taina and Cydele as the visible twins, and Eshuumna as the unseen rainbow, invisible in the darkness between them. The fact that there are really three rather than two is a reminder that the apparent dualities in life are often misleading and untrue. Just as there is more to the twins than we can see at first glance, there is also more to the apparent duality of life and death than a simple pairing of opposites. Life and death are two sides of the same coin, inextricably intertwined in a never-ending cycle, like the two snakes the serpent mother holds, the red and gold serpent of life and destruction, and the black and silver one of death and regeneration. The twins had a special connection with bull leaping and the story about human life and death. It was a tale people told especially at this time of year, the season of life in death and death in life. It goes like this. When we watch the bull leaping at a festival, the athletes making their graceful jumps over the running bulls, we are seeing the story of life and death and what lies beyond, laid out for us in the form of a ritual. At birth, the soul comes through the starry doorway, leaving the Great Mother's arms and moving into this life, just as the leaper moves forward toward the bull, gripping its horns and jumping so their feet leave the ground. We move through this life just as the leaper arches ever so gracefully through the air over the bull. Life is but a great leap. Then, just as the leaper lands safely and securely on the ground behind the bull, at the end of our lives, we pass back through the starry doorway again, safely and securely back in the Great Mother's arms. So it is with all life. There is no end, only renewal. And in the blooming time, we celebrate these cycles and the love that pervades them, never ending, encompassing us always, for we are the Great Mother's children. The end.